again, and welcome to ManchTalk. I'm Tammy Simmons. I'm your host, and I'm glad you're tuning in on this chilly, wintry day. As you know, I tape on Tuesdays, so today would be, I think, the 29th of January, just a couple days leading up into the month that shall remain nameless in our home. Dan keeps asking me why we're not sitting on a beach in Florida right now, and I don't really have a good answer for him. Today, I wanted to talk a lot about one bill in particular that's coming up in the State House, and then an issue that I find I take to heart personally. When I served in the legislature, I don't know, 2 or 3 years ago, actually, let's go back. When I served in the legislature in 2011, 2012, we passed legislation allowing for education tax credits from business taxes, business enterprise taxes, business profits taxes. And there's a mechanism in which a business can take a portion of the money that they would normally maybe pay to the state and instead send it to a qualifying scholarship organization who in turn could award scholarships to kids generally on the lower end of the economic spectrum, so that they can have more opportunities in their educational choices. It's easy for the people at the top of the food chain, the top of the economic chain, to make choices for their children because they can probably afford tuition in a private school to get their kid in a better place. They could even afford to sell their house and move to a town that had a better school. But for the folks who, live paycheck to paycheck, who, just are regular run-of-the-mill folks who tend to be down at the bottom of the economic scale, there aren't a whole lot of choices, especially here in Manchester, where we struggle with so many issues with our education. I have no kids of my own, so taxes are taken from me and spent wildly on education. More than half of my property tax bills go towards education here in Manchester. And I would rather see my money go to kids. I want to look at each individual kid and say, what's the best fit for that one kid? And when we start thinking of public education as being about publicly educating the children as opposed to a public school building, I think our whole state is better off. So on that note, we had passed legislation way back then about the education tax credits last year. That was expanded to include business personal interest and dividends taxes. So for those folks that have invested money and are paying taxes to the state of New Hampshire on those interest and dividends funds, they can now also contribute to the education scholarship programs. So joining me today is a good friend of mine. Her name is Levell, and she's from School Choice for New Hampshire, an organization that obviously promotes school choice. Big advocate for homeschooling and alternative schooling and charter schooling and pretty much anything that can work with kids, I bet.
Absolutely. Anything that works for the family, it's awesome.
That's right. Michelle and I have known each other for years, and education's probably been the biggest issue that we've ever worked on together. As well as with Kate Baker, the wonderful, amazing Kate Baker, who runs the education, I can never get the name right, Children's Scholarship Fund, NH, which is part of a larger umbrella group, which is, she's located obviously right here in New Hampshire, her office is in Concord, and she is the one who actually manages those funds that are given. So thanks for coming out on this cold day and joining me so we could talk about an awful bill that's facing the state, coming forward in the New Hampshire House that will actually ding kids. I mean, it's actually, we're doing the right thing, I think. I think the scholarships are showing that kids are getting better opportunities for better education, and that's what I want my money to go to.
Right. The scholarship fund has to do an annual survey every year of the families and ask them, so how do you like it? How's it working for you? And over 90% say that they are very satisfied with how it's working for their families. Mm-hmm. Isn't that what it's all about?
Well, I would hope. I hope that, like I've said, I always say, public education, people get things confused. It's just like when people talk about separation of church and state and they think that means there can't be any religion, when it actually just means there can't be a state religion. People get tripped up on words. Public education should mean my public money I'm forced to pay it.
Yeah.
To educate the children in my state.
Right.
It doesn't mean I have to pay for every ding in the teacher's contract. Like that's not what it's about. It should be about the kids.
Exactly. I like to focus on the children, not the building.
Right. The building is secondary. I don't care if there's a building as long as the kids are getting educated.
Right. Isn't that our obligation?
Yes.
Our obligation is to provide an education for the child. So is
not to provide jobs in a school building.
So if we focus on the kids and how's it working out for them, and they're satisfied, better educational outcomes, more efficient use of those resources. We're focusing on the kids, not the buildings where that takes place.
Right. And in some cases, that public school building may actually be a great fit for a large number of children. And I'm not like people think that if you're challenging the status quo in education, that means you're anti-teacher. And I'm like, I have friends who are teachers. I have friends who teach in the Manchester School District. Yep. It's not the teachers. If you have it in you to teach children, I kudos to you, because that's just not where I could go. Although as a kid, I used to think I'd be a teacher. But we have good teachers. Yeah. I just think the whole bureaucracy of our school systems and this concept of public education just stopped looking at little Susie and saying, well, why isn't Susie doing well in this room? Maybe we could put Susie someplace else and Susie could thrive.
That's exactly it. So public education is assigned by your zip code.
Right.
Kids are assigned, so it's based on where you live.
Right.
And that doesn't work for everybody. It becomes a one-size-fits-all answer. And children, anybody who deals with kids knows they can be very, very different. And even in an awesome school district, that particular place may not be a good fit for that little Susie or that little Johnny or whatever. And if we're focusing on the kids, we want them to be successful, because we want them to be able to thrive and reach that potential. And frankly, that's a win for those kids, those families, and our communities. That's what we want, don't we?
Right. Well, because especially those kids are going to grow up and be the leaders of our communities. Do we want them to be as highly educated as we could with the resources we have, or just so-so education? And
it's not always about the quality of the education. Right. It may be just, is it fitting that kid's needs? Because, kids are on a different band.
Sorts of, and it can change from year to year. You could have a kid that's doing great, and then they aren't doing great for who knows what reason.
Or different subjects. Right. Maybe, Chris is great in math, and Jamie is really a strong reader and writer, and they could accelerate, but there's a limit.
Right, because we have to make sure that we're teaching this
to this. Or a kid needs a smaller environment, or a little bit more repetition, a little bit more time to grasp that subject, and then they'll be great. There's all kinds of needs where that one classroom may not fit everybody's needs. And that's what school choice is about. Right. And frankly, there are kids who get bullied.
Yeah, there's a lot of kids that get bullied, and not even like bullying to the degree I don't think that we all think of as bullying, but just the social pressures and the keeping up with something that maybe for some kids they just can't keep up. It's too much emotionally for them. Every 14-year-old kid is not emotionally on the same plane as every other 14-year-old kid. Some of those 14-year-olds might be more like 16-year-olds, and some of them might still only be 12-year-olds.
We all mature at different rates. We all have different learning developments. And that school choice empowers the parents to find the fits where their kids can grow to their potential at their own rate, where they'll fit.
Right.
And that's what it's all about. And, it's a shame, because when you look at it, there are kids who may have special needs. Mm-hmm. They are often the kids that are targeted for bullying. Right. So these things are compounded.
Right. That kid that's struggling with other issues now has the kid, because kids aren't nice. I mean, I remember being a kid. Kids aren't always nice.
It's hard.
It's not hard. Easy to be, especially when you get into that, anywhere from 8 or 9 probably till 18? It's a lot.
There's a lot of social pressures.
And I just can't imagine. I had it easy as a kid. I was average shaped, average looking, average everything. So I didn't have, anybody poking at me and making fun of me or...
It's tough.
Yeah.
And when you're in those environments, it's really hard to concentrate on school and do your best.
Right.
And then if you're looking at kids who are coming from that low economic band, and that's who is served by these scholarships, they've got an extra challenge to overcome right out of the gate.
Right.
So the scholarship fund that was passed back in 2012, implemented in 2013.
Yay. I voted for that.
That was awesome.
It made me cry. I used to cry at the State House all the time. Made me cry. I ran out into the hallway, and Senator Jim Forsythe was out there, and I was like, we did it! I was so excited.
Great day. So since that program was implemented, just over 6 years ago, started, 877 children have utilized the program, and it can be life-changing for these kids.
Right.
This year alone, 413 are utilizing the scholarships.
I think that's a number that I don't think people hear those numbers enough. I mean, and it's a new thing. I mean, this is still in its growing stage, although I think it is like out of that beginning growing stage. Kate's taken it, way up the scale. But I think people sometimes think when they hear about scholarship funds or they hear about school choice, they think it's just a couple, it's just that one and this one and that one. But, 400 plus kids in just, our state's not huge.
Right.
We don't have a huge state. So they take the population, I don't even know how many kids, I should look that up, how many school age kids there are. And if 413 of them are benefiting from the tax credits, why would we want to not expand that? Maybe there's, I'm confident, I'm not saying maybe like I doubt it. If we are helping 413 kids now and they're 90% are feeling good about it, maybe we should be helping 1,000 kids. Maybe we should be helping 3,000 kids. And, you get the pushback from people about the public school building saying, well, all this is doing is taking funds from the public schools. Well, to a small degree, I guess, but very small. And part of, I think, why some of our public schools don't, maybe not at this teacher level, not at the classroom level, but from my perspective, I think maybe if there was a little bit more competition to get those funds, if everybody wasn't just guaranteed to get all the federal money or all the state money that goes to education, the administrators in some of our schools might start more objectively looking at how they can improve our schools. Because if a kid can go to the school that his friends in his neighborhood can go to and get the best education possible, I think most people would pick that. And if it didn't cost you anything.
Sure.
Why wouldn't you? Let's go to the free one that gives me a great education where I'm with all my friends.
Right.
But what if it's not the best education?
What's really important is that these funds, these scholarships are funded entirely through private donations.
That's right.
It's not the state dollars or local dollars that are following these kids out. It's entirely funded through private donations by businesses or individuals.
Right.
So it's not taking money
away
that would otherwise be in that school.
Right.
And that's something people really don't get.
The school's like, okay, so Johnny, the student, the school still gets the money for him being in that district, even though he's not in the school.
Yes.
So
that's right.
Every kid that goes out of the regular school, the normal, regular public school building, to a charter, not charter because those are public schools, but to, a private school or homeschool, those state adequacy money stays in the schools.
It's gets reallocated for the kids.
Right.
So, that money does not follow those kids out, and that's something a lot of people misunderstand.
Right, they think we're just going to take this money, and it goes with this kid that goes off to, private school over here, and that just means there's less money to focus on the rest of the kids, but the math just doesn't work that way.
It actually means
there's more.
There's more on a per pupil basis.
Because you have one fewer student, and there's almost like 99% of the money.
Right.
So... It's bizarre when people who take the time to actually read how it works go, well, I don't understand why would anybody be opposed to this? And I'm like, I don't know.
And these, as I was saying, these are the kids that need it the most.
Right. These aren't the kids that are, getting great grades now, or
these are not wealthy families.
No.
So
I've seen the stories.
By definition, in statute, these are families that can earn no more than 300% of the federal poverty limit.
Which is not much.
For a family of four,
right?
It's $75,300.
So a family making $75,000 on a family of four, which, years ago, $75,000 used to sound like a lot of money, but it isn't anymore.
It really isn't.
Not if you're raising, and then I can't imagine making only $75,000 to raise a family and pay private tuition.
Right.
I mean, I've known people who've put their kids through Catholic schools, and I've never understood how they could possibly do it.
They work really hard.
Right.
Yeah.
And then it's unfortunate because, yes, they're doing something to help their kids, but then sometimes those kids can't have other things because everything's got to go into the tuition, you know?
Absolutely.
So there's always, I would like to see my money.
Right.
If I was paying business interest, taxes, or not business, interest and dividends taxes, because I don't own a business, I'd actually like to see some of my money go to help kids, specific kids that really need the help.
And these kids truly, truly need the help. So 62% of the scholarship recipients are actually qualified for free and reduced lunch. So these are truly the most impoverished kids. For a family of 4, that is only $46,400.
So 62% of the kids aren't even at that 300. I mean, when we say the 300% of poverty is 75,000, that doesn't mean all these people make 75,000. No. These people are making, what's the number?
46,000.
So their family is making less than $46,000 a year for a family of 4. That's more than half of the kids that are in the scholarship program now.
More than half.
So there's a bill, just so you know. House Bill 632, which is obviously generated on the House side. I'm a little concerned that there might be also bills generating on the Senate side that we have not actually seen language on. It put forward by a whole bunch of Democrats, including Mary Heath, right here from Manchester, who I believe may have been a former school teacher. But
she was also with the Department of Ed for a period of time.
Very involved in the bureaucracy of government education, to take out what was just added. Now, despite everything else, every good reason, when we enact legislation, sometimes, especially enabling legislation, not prohibitive legislation, when we enact enabling legislation that allows us to try something new that doesn't impede anybody's personal liberties or anything, we should at least give it at least one cycle to see if it helps. Or bad. This just passed
it would actually,
less than a year ago.
If you read further in the bill, it actually repeals the entire program by 2020.
Oh.
It's gone. Poof, gone. For everybody. Gone.
Oh, I didn't even, see? Now there's a perfect example. I browsed through this. I was lazy. I always say that. I'm Tuesday morning lazy. You're right. This bill removes the application of the education tax credit in RSA 77G to taxes due under the interest and dividends tax. So that would be now. And on July 1st, 2020, which is just a year and a half from now, it entirely deletes the education tax credit program. Really, Mary Heath? You really think you're for the kids? Because I don't think right now that sounds like you're for the kids. You're definitely not for the 877 kids that have benefited from this program. So, what can people do to voice their opinions if they believe that we need to continue to allow school choice for kids here in New Hampshire?
So there's the public hearing in the House Ways and Means Committee on Tuesday the 5th at 11 o'clock. Write the committee. Call them, even better. Call them. Tell them, keep this program intact. It helps our most at-risk students. They need the support. And it's private donations, not public funds. So please call them, email them. You can find that information on my website, which is schoolchoicenh.org.
I think that's down here somewhere.
But you can find it schoolchoicenh.org. I do write-ups on these bills. You'll see it there. Right under the headline, you'll see something that's called Defend Education Freedom. You can, with a click of a button, send a customized email to the committee and your own state reps.
Nice.
So real easy. You can customize that message just by filling in a form. So easy peasy. I also have the committee's emails in a cut paste.
Nice.
And so if you want
to type them,
you don't have to type them. You don't have to search. Just do cut, paste, boom, and send off your own email telling them to keep this program and what it means to your family or why you support it. And I mean, they need to hear from people because it's that voice That really matters.
I agree. And if you strongly believe, as I do, that school choice and the education tax credit scholarship program is vital for the kids here in New Hampshire, maybe next Tuesday, which is, by the time you're watching this, it'll be Tuesday, maybe you can come up to Concord on Tuesday, 11 a.m., tentatively scheduled for room 202. But if enough of us could take the time out of our day to go voice our opinions, maybe they'll have to move it to a bigger room. I would imagine that there's going to be a lot of kids at the State House on Tuesday.
Great civics field trip.
That's right. That's right. I will post a link to your website so that it drives everything to you. There, I will also share some of the graphic information that you gave me about how many students are being helped now, how many have been helped since 2013. I'll post the link to Kate Baker's organization, because not only can you donate to them via the tax credit program, you can make direct donations to them, which sometimes is very vital, because there might be, I know Kate told me a story once about a little boy, I don't remember exactly where, who had autism, if I'm not mistaken, and he had been on the tax credit scholarship program, and he was in a school that he was better able to thrive in, and he lived with his grandparents, and they got a leaky roof, and his grandfather went back to work to earn money to fix the roof, and that bumped him up in the income, and they were no longer eligible for the scholarship. And they didn't want to have to pull him out and send him, from a school that he was thriving in. So Kate Baker's organization, through those donations that are made directly, which is what Dan and I do and stuff, they were able to pay for his tuition until the incomes settled back down to their normal levels and he was eligible again. So I will link to your great organization, to Kate Baker's great organization, and on Michelle's website you can find more information about where that committee, when that hearing will be. If they meet next week, this won't come to a full House vote probably until, I would imagine, late February, because it takes at least, if they have a hearing next week, even if they vote on it in committee the following week, on the 12th,
right,
it wouldn't come to the floor until the following Thursday, probably.
Well, and then there's that tentative break in February.
Right. So that's what I mean. We're not talking about the push for you to reach out to every one of your state reps won't be for a couple more weeks. Right now, we'd like to focus on the committee and the folks who are making that first determination.
That would go so far.
And this is being heard in Ways and Means, not in the Education Committee. So
right.
It's a different group of people.
Yeah, they're the ones that deal with the financial issues, and they're treating it that way.
Yep.
They're not even considering the policy, what it means to the family.
They're just looking at the tax credit aspect of it.
Which is bizarre, because if these kids have to get forced back into public schools,
it's going to cost more money.
Don't fit. It's going to cost more money.
So the tax credit saves us money, but let's get rid of that and spend more of your money and my money and have less choices for the kids. Makes no sense. Where
they won't thrive and they're going to be unhappy. How does that make any sense?
I never understand it. And like I said, I don't have kids. I don't have to be a parent to be able to see that the current system doesn't work for everybody.
And these are private funds.
Right.
It's not even state money. Right. It's not even your local property tax money. So what's the problem?
People don't like to see choice in education. Some people just think it's bad, and I just can't wrap my head around it.
I don't get it.
We have choice in everything that we do in life, or most things we do in life. Why, in something as important as educating a child, would we want to limit the amount of choice there is?
I don't get it. I can't explain it.
It's weird. Well, Michelle, I am thrilled that you came in and spent the morning with me. You and Kate are always welcome. I always say that. Anytime you want to come on and talk about something that's going on with education here in New Hampshire, please, by all means, come and talk, because I think it's an issue people need to hear more about more often.
Thank you.
That's Michelle Levell, schoolchoicenh.org, somewhere down there. Beyond that, I didn't even bother to look up what's going on in Manchester this week because it's just too dang cold. I guess it was like minus 60 degrees in Minneapolis yesterday, so with the wind chill, so that's heading our way. Knock on wood. We don't have snow on the ground, which makes me kind of happy. I mean, we have a little bit, but we don't have snow. And so if you're out and about, take a trip over to McIntyre. They still have snow to ski or snow tube on. But in the meantime, maybe just hunker down, stay warm, and stay safe. And I will see you again next week. Bye.